So tonight we're going to look at Psalm 6, which I love this psalm. It's a real simple psalm. It's a psalm of grief, and I, for some reason, always, and I don't know why exactly, but I've always thought that it's a grief. I've kind of pictured it as a grief of kind of related to sin. And I mean, the reason for that is because it begins with, "Oh Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger or discipline me in your wrath." So, I mean, that kind of gives me a window into that. But then from that point on, really, it's a psalm about grief and weeping and I just, the way that I read it is that David in this situation has sinned. I have sinned. This is certainly a psalm that's true of me. And that the sin causes grief. And I mean, like so much, like all sin does. And what I love about this psalm is the challenge that it is for me, because he doesn't actually confess his sin as much as other psalms do. This is a psalm that it's a psalm, it's a prayer of deliverance. Now I want you to think about that. What's so amazing is it's a psalm of deliverance from the grief of the sin. Now, how many times have we sinned and caused grief, caused ourselves grief, caused others grief, and kind of like felt like we were getting what we deserved and stoically put up with the discipline of the Lord or the consequences of our sin? This psalm doesn't do that. This psalm is the psalm of somebody who has created a mess and asks God to fix it. Their sin has caused them grief, for sure. I think later on towards the end, it seems to me that it's also caused the psalmist David to have some pretty questionable people around him. And for someone like me who's just racked with kind of guilt of my own imagination and self-loathing, the idea that I can sin and and in the midst of the consequences of my sin, whether natural consequences or the consequences, that God has brought upon me, that I can say, "God, make it stop." That's grace. That's an understanding of grace that I have a hard time understanding or having. It's childlike faith, because I mean, like, if an adult does a really bad job at work and gets fired for it, or a reduction in pay, they're like, "Yeah, that's probably what I deserved." Man, when you're disciplining a child, they're just like, "No, stop it. Like, I don't want this. Please stop, disciplining me. I don't want to be disciplined." I love that the Psalms and this psalm allows me to pray that. And so as I read this, I want you to pray along with me. It's a direct prayer, and I always pray all the Psalms, but some of these are really easy to pray because they're full-on prayers. And I would encourage you to pray along with me that God would deliver us from the grief of our sin, from the trouble that our sin creates, from the mess that we make here in our rebellion, that we ask God, make it go away. It's the prayer of a child. And so to put us in that position of childlike faith, "Oh Lord, my heart is not lifted up, my eyes are not raised too high. I do not concern myself with things that are too great or too marvelous for me. But I have calmed and I have quieted my soul. Like a weaned child with its mother is my soul within me." Hear the word of the Lord in the prayer from Psalm 6. O Lord, rebuke me not in your anger, nor discipline me in your wrath. Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing. Heal me, O Lord, for my bones are troubled. My soul also is greatly troubled. But you, O Lord, how long? Turn, O Lord, deliver my life. Save me for the sake of your steadfast love. For in death there is no remembrance of you. In Sheol, who will give you praise? I am weary with my moaning. Every night I flood my bed with tears. I drench my couch with my weeping. My eye wastes away because of grief. It grows weak because of all my foes. Depart from me, all you workers of evil, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has heard my plea. The Lord accepts my prayer. All my enemies shall be ashamed and greatly troubled. They shall turn back and be put to shame in a moment. Amen.